The massive starship Void Traveler hung in the darkness of space, its gleaming silver hull reflecting the distant light of an unfamiliar star. Inside the observation deck, Admiral Krebs stared at the blue-green planet displayed on the main view screen. His 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the readouts scrolling beside the image. "Impossible," he muttered, his scaled fingers tapping against the console. "Run the scans again." Officer Dax, a slender being with pale blue skin, nodded respectfully. "Sir, we've already run 3 complete planetary assessments. The results are consistent each time." The bridge crew worked silently at their stations, occasionally glancing up at the unexpected readings. The planet before them, designated P3742 in their charts, was showing environmental conditions beyond their standard classification system. Extreme temperature variations ranging from -60 to +50 on our scale. Dax continued, reading directly from the data. Atmosphere filled with reactive oxygen, regular electrical storms, active volcanism, constant tectonic movement, predators in every ecosystem, microscopic organisms that consume foreign tissue, radiation levels that should prevent complex life. He paused. The computer classifies it as Class 15, the highest danger level in our records. Admiral Krebs rubbed his ridged forehead. "And yet we're picking up artificial signals." "Yes, sir. Unmistakably technological in nature. Radio waves, digital transmissions, energy signatures consistent with an industrial civilization." The science officer, Wren, approached with a tablet displaying more detailed readings. "Sir, according to our records, no known spacefaring species could survive in these conditions without extensive protection. Even our most hardened explorers would perish within minutes on the surface." The Admiral turned to his communication specialist. "Any response to our standard greeting broadcast?" "None, Admiral," replied the specialist. "But we're intercepting thousands of signals they're sending to each other. The translation matrix is still processing their languages." Krebs moved closer to the view screen, studying the swirling cloud patterns and vast blue oceans of the deadly world. "Prepare a stealth probe. I want visual confirmation of the life forms down there." Hours later, the bridge crew gathered around the display as the first images from the surface probe appeared. The room fell silent. The pictures showed sprawling cities with tall structures reaching toward the sky. Vehicles moved along organized pathways. Green spaces were carefully maintained between building clusters, and moving through it all were bipedal beings, unprotected, without environmental suits or visible technological assistance. "They're just walking around," whispered Dax in disbelief. "Breathing that toxic air, exposed to that radiation. How is this possible?" The probe sent more images. The bipeds swimming in the corrosive oceans, climbing mountains in thin air, dwelling in regions with freezing temperatures, cultivating plants in soil laden with microorganisms. Admiral Krebs straightened his uniform, a decision forming in his mind. "Send a message to command. We've discovered an impossibility. Intelligent life thriving on a Class 15 Deathworld." He paused, watching a scene of the creatures gathering in some kind of social ritual, laughing and eating together. "These beings must possess biological adaptations beyond anything we've encountered." "What will command order us to do?" asked Wren. "First contact protocols, most likely," Krebs replied. "But with extreme caution. Any species that evolved in these conditions." He didn't finish his thought, but everyone on the bridge understood. Whatever these creatures were, they might be the most dangerous life forms the galactic community had ever encountered, not because they appeared hostile, but because anything that could call such a lethal planet home possessed capabilities they couldn't begin to comprehend. The command center of the Void Traveler hummed with nervous energy as Admiral Krebs addressed the chosen landing team. 5 specialists stood at attention, each wearing the most advanced protective suits the fleet had to offer, gleaming silver material that could withstand acid, radiation, extreme temperatures, and physical attacks. "Your mission is observation only. Kreb emphasized, his voice stern. Do not make direct contact with the natives unless absolutely necessary. We need to understand how they survive before we reveal ourselves. Dr. Mira, the team's xenobiologist, raised a three-fingered hand. Sir, our preliminary analysis suggests these beings are carbon-based, despite the hostile environment. They appear to lack natural protection against most of the planetary hazards, which makes their existence even more baffling, replied Kreb. That's why your team has been selected. Find answers. Captain Vin, the team leader, nodded firmly. We'll set down in a remote area, establish a hidden observation post, and gather data for 72 hours before reporting back. The small scout ship detached from the Void Traveler and began its descent toward the blue planet. Inside, the landing party checked their equipment one final time. The ship's sensors detected a suitable landing zone, a dense forest area near a small settlement of the natives. Atmospheric entry in 30 seconds, announced the pilot. Brace for turbulence. The craft shuddered violently as it hit the upper atmosphere. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. Extreme wind patterns, shouted the pilot. Lightning activity directly ahead. A brilliant flash struck the ship, causing systems to momentarily fail. The craft dropped several hundred meters before the pilot regained control. Hull temperature rising rapidly, reported the engineer. The friction from this atmosphere is more intense than predicted. When they finally broke through the cloud layer, the team got their first direct view of the planet's surface. Vast green forests stretched beneath them, bordered by mountains on one side and a large body of water on the other. Those readings can't be correct, muttered Dr. Mira, staring at her scanner. The air outside contains enough oxygen to be combustible. How have they not had planetary firestorms? The ship touched down in a small clearing. For several minutes, no one moved, all eyes fixed on the external sensor readings. Radiation levels higher than safe standards, noted the security officer. Temperature at 28 degrees, within the tolerable range, but the humidity is nearly 70%. Barometric pressure would crush a Nebulan's lungs. Captain Vin stood up. Helmets sealed. Weapons non-lethal only. Remember, we're scientists, not invaders. As the ramp lowered, the team was hit by their first shock, the smell. Despite their advanced filtration systems, the rich scent of organic matter, moisture, and countless unknown compounds penetrated their suits. The forest loomed around them, teeming with sounds and movement. Life readings everywhere, whispered the technician. More biodiversity in this clearing than on most habitable planets. They moved cautiously through the underbrush, each step revealing new wonders and horrors. Insects large enough to be visible swarmed around them. Plant life grew with unnatural vigor, fighting for every patch of sunlight. Look, Dr. Mira pointed to a spot where tiny organisms were rapidly decomposing a fallen tree. The decay rate is accelerated. Nothing here stays dead for long. A sudden crash in the distance froze them in place. Through the trees, they spotted one of the native bipeds, moving with unexpected grace through the forest. It was male, dressed in simple coverings, carrying a primitive cutting tool. No protective gear, Captain Vin observed through his binoculars. No breathing apparatus. No radiation shield. He's completely exposed to this environment. The native stopped suddenly, turning his head toward their position. Though they were concealed and their suits designed to blend with the surroundings, the biped seemed to sense their presence. He stood perfectly still, eyes scanning the forest. He can't possibly see us, whispered the security officer. Dr. Mira checked her scanner. His vital signs show no fear response. If anything, his senses appear to be heightening. Then the native did something none of them expected. He smiled, waved directly at their hidden position, and called out in a friendly tone before continuing on his way. The landing party remained frozen, a single alarming thought shared among them. On this deadly world, the natives weren't just surviving. They were thriving, with senses sharp enough to detect visitors. Their technology should have rendered invisible. Captain Vin signaled for the team to retreat back to their ship. Their cover was compromised, and the mission parameters needed reassessment. "How did that native detect us?" demanded Vin once they were safely inside the scout vessel. Dr. Mira shook her head, reviewing data on her tablet. "Unknown. Their visual spectrum shouldn't allow them to see through our camouflage. Perhaps they have heightened senses we don't understand yet." "More concerning," added the security officer, "is that he showed no fear. He was alone, encountered something unknown, and simply greeted it." The communications panel chimed. Admiral Krebs' face appeared on screen, his expression tense. "Report, Captain." "Sir, we were detected almost immediately by a native. Our stealth technology proved ineffective." The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked in succession, a sign of deep concern. "This changes our approach. The Council has reviewed your initial findings and upgraded this mission to Priority 1. You are now authorized for direct contact." Silence fell over the landing party. First contact was a delicate procedure, typically planned for months. To authorize it so quickly was unprecedented. "Sir," questioned Vin, "the potential knowledge these beings possess is too valuable," explained Krebs. "Any species that can adapt to such conditions could revolutionize our understanding of biology. Approach with caution, but make contact." After careful deliberation, the team decided to approach the small settlement they had observed from orbit. They would arrive openly, in daylight, showing peaceful intentions. As they crested a hill overlooking the settlement, they saw a simple collection of wooden structures surrounded by cultivated fields. Smoke rose from several chimneys, and natives moved about performing various tasks. "Those buildings offer almost no protection from the elements," observed the engineer. "They're using combustion for heating, in an oxygen-rich atmosphere." Before they could advance further, they noticed movement at the edge of the settlement. A group of natives was approaching them, led by the same male they had encountered in the forest. "They were expecting us," said Vin. "Stand your ground." Non-threatening posture. The natives stopped 30 meters away. There were 5 of them, 3 males and 2 females, dressed in simple clothing with no visible weapons or technology. The leader stepped forward. "Hello again," he called out, his voice now translated by their systems. "I told everyone we had visitors from the stars, but some didn't believe me." Captain Vin stepped forward, activating his external speaker. "We come in peace from the Galactic Alliance. We mean no harm to your people." The human smiled. "We figured as much. If you wanted to hurt us, you would have done it already." He gestured to their surroundings. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Jack. This is my home." Dr. Mira moved beside Vin. "How are you surviving here?" "Our scans indicate this planet should be uninhabitable." The humans exchanged confused glances. The female with red hair laughed. "Uninhabitable. This is the only home we've ever known." Captain Vin took a cautious step closer. "Your atmosphere contains corrosive gases. Your water would dissolve our internal organs. Your solar radiation would damage our genetic structure. Yet you stand before us unprotected." Jack shrugged. "What you call corrosive, we call air. What would harm you helps us live." He studied their sealed suits with curiosity. "Would you like to come to our village? Share a meal, perhaps?" The security officer whispered urgently, "Captain, their food would kill us instantly." "We appreciate the offer," Vin replied diplomatically, "but our biology is very different from yours." "All the more reason to talk," said Jack. "We've wondered about other life among the stars for generations. Now you're here. And clearly, you have much to teach us about the universe, and perhaps we have things to teach you too." The female with dark hair stepped forward. "You're surprised by our existence, aren't you? Your reaction suggests our world is unusual." Dr. Mira nodded within her helmet. "In our classification system, your planet is rated Class 15, the most dangerous environment we've ever cataloged. No other intelligent species has evolved in such conditions." The humans didn't appear shocked or proud at this revelation. Instead, they seemed genuinely puzzled. Dangerous. Jack looked around at the peaceful countryside. I suppose there are challenges. Storms, winters, the occasional predator. But dangerous. This is paradise to us. Captain Vin realized the profound truth in that moment. What constituted deadly peril to every other species in the known galaxy was simply normal existence to these humans. Their adaptation wasn't merely biological. It was deeply ingrained in their perception of reality itself. These beings didn't survive despite their world's hostility. They thrived because they didn't perceive it as hostile at all. The aliens followed Jack and his companions toward the human settlement with cautious steps. Despite their advanced protective gear, the landing party felt vulnerable on this deadly world. Every rustle in the surrounding vegetation made them tense. Our town isn't much compared to what you must have among the stars, Jack said over his shoulder, but we're proud of it. We call it Westridge, been here for about 200 years now. Dr. Mira recorded everything with her scanner. Your respiratory functions appear normal despite the toxic. She caught herself, despite what we consider toxic atmospheric conditions. Fascinating. The female with dark hair, who had introduced herself as Rose, smiled. You keep saying things are toxic or dangerous here. What's your home world like? Our worlds have stable climates, explained Engineer Toll. Controlled weather patterns, filtered air, sterilized environments, minimal temperature variations. Rose's eyebrows rose. Sounds boring. As they entered Westridge, the aliens witnessed scenes that contradicted everything they understood about survival. Children played in dirt that their scanners indicated contained billions of microorganisms. Elderly humans sat outdoors despite solar radiation that would damage cellular structures. A group of adults were cooking food over open flames, the smoke containing numerous carcinogenic compounds. Captain Vin noticed small four-legged creatures running freely among the humans. Are those predator species living among you? Jack laughed. Those are just dogs and cats. Pets. They're domesticated. You keep predators as companions. The security officer couldn't hide his shock. They're not predators to us, Jack explained. Well, technically they are, but they're family. The visitors were led to a large wooden building in the center of town. Inside, more humans gathered, their curious faces studying the strange suited figures. An older man with white hair stepped forward. I'm Mayor Bill, he said with a slight bow. Jack radioed ahead about you. First contact, a historic day for all of us. Captain Vin performed the formal greeting of the Galactic Alliance. We represent over 300 species across this sector of the galaxy. Your planet was classified as uninhabitable until we detected your civilization. Yet here we are, Mayor Bill said, spreading his arms. Been here for thousands of years. Building, growing, surviving. That's what we're trying to understand, interjected Dr. Mira. The humans merely glanced out the windows with mild interest. Might be a big one, observed Jack casually. Good for the crops. In that moment, Captain Vin understood something profound about humans. It wasn't that they had special biological adaptations to survive Earth's extreme conditions. Rather, their greatest adaptation was psychological. They had evolved to perceive deadly danger as normal, even beneficial. What would drive other species to panic was, to humans, just another Tuesday afternoon. 3 days after first contact, the Void Traveler established an orbital base above Earth. Admiral Krebs had arrived with a science team to study the humans more closely. Meanwhile, Captain Vin's landing party continued their observations in Westridge. Dr. Mira had set up a temporary laboratory in one of the wooden buildings. With permission from several volunteers, she collected human biological samples for analysis. What she discovered left her stunned. Admiral, you need to see this, she said, transmitting data to the ship. Human cellular structure is remarkably ordinary. Their DNA is fragile, their immune systems relatively simple. By all accounts, they should be vulnerable to virtually everything on this planet. Admiral Krebs' scaled face appeared on her screen. Then how are they surviving? They've developed biological countermeasures to specific threats, but nothing that explains their overall resilience, she replied. Their greatest advantage seems to be adaptability itself, not specialized adaptations. In another part of the village, Engineer Toll examined human tools and technology with growing concern. Their technological development is alarmingly rapid, he reported. From primitive stone tools to basic spaceflight in less than 10,000 years. Most species take 5 times longer to advance that far. The security officer, stationed near the village perimeter, made his own troubling observations. Sir, they train constantly for combat scenarios. Even their recreation involves simulated warfare. They call it sports and games, but the patterns are clear. They're hardwired for conflict. Admiral Krebs called an emergency meeting with his senior staff aboard the Void Traveler *. Captain Vin attended via holographic projection from the surface. The Council is demanding answers, Krebs began gravely. They're concerned about the implications of human physiology and psychology. With respect, Admiral, said Captain Vin, the humans have shown no hostility. They've been overwhelmingly cooperative. That's not the concern, replied Krebs. Based on our findings, humans represent something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that evolved not by specializing to survive their environment, but by developing the ability to alter their environment to suit themselves. The science director displayed images on the main screen. Look at their planetary history. When cold threatened them, they didn't evolve fur. They harnessed fire. When predators threatened them, they didn't develop claws. They created weapons. When disease struck, they developed medicine instead of natural immunity. And they're advancing exponentially, added the chief analyst. Their technological progress is accelerating at rates that suggest they'll achieve interstellar capabilities within decades, not centuries. What's the danger? Asked Captain Vin. Shouldn't we welcome another spacefaring species? Admiral Krebs' 4 eyes narrowed. The danger, Captain, is that humans evolved on a world that would kill any of us in minutes. They consider deadly hazards to be minor inconveniences. Their bodies may seem fragile, but their minds were forged in conditions we can barely comprehend. The room fell silent as images of human history played across the screen. Wars, explorations, disasters, and triumphs. They climb mountains that would suffocate most species for fun, continued Krebs. They dive into toxic oceans as recreation. They deliberately consume plants and animals that contain compounds that would kill most sentient life. Their entire existence is built around confronting danger rather than avoiding it. Captain Vin recalled a conversation with Jack earlier that day. The human had casually mentioned how his ancestors had crossed an entire ocean in wooden vessels, knowing many would die in the attempt. When I asked him why they took such risks, Vin said, he simply replied, to see what was on the other side. As if curiosity alone justified potential death. The science director's voice was somber. The Council must understand. Humans aren't dangerous because they're hostile. They're dangerous because what terrifies us merely challenges them. If we welcome them into galactic society unprepared, they would unintentionally devastate other species simply by treating everyone as if they had evolved on Earth. Admiral Krebs stood up, his decision made. We must approach this carefully. Humanity represents both incredible opportunity and unprecedented risk. They've survived on a Class 15 Deathworld not through biological superiority, but through sheer determination and adaptability. And that, concluded Dr. Mira from her laboratory on Earth, is what truly makes humans the most remarkable species we've ever encountered. The Galactic Council debated for 3 full cycles about the human situation. Never before had they encountered a species that evolved on a Class 15 Deathworld, and their protocols contained no guidance for such a scenario. Finally, they reached a decision. Humans would be subjected to a test before any formal recognition in the galactic community. Admiral Krebs delivered the news personally to Mayor Bill and other human representatives gathered in Westridge's community hall. The Council has concerns about how humans might interact with other species, Krebs explained, his voice translated through his suit's speakers. Most galactic citizens evolved in far gentler environments. What seems normal to you could harm or kill others. Jack leaned forward on his elbows. So we're too tough for our own good. Not exactly, replied Captain Vin. Your adaptability presents unique challenges. The Council wants to evaluate how you handle those differences before proceeding further. Mayor Bill nodded thoughtfully. Seems reasonable. What's this test involve? 3 humans will accompany us to Station Gamma, a neutral facility on the edge of your solar system, said Admiral Krebs. There, you'll interact with representatives from 5 other species under controlled conditions. Rose raised her hand. Will we need special suits like yours to protect them from us? Dr. Mira shook her head inside her helmet. The station will be configured to accommodate all physiologies. But you must understand the stakes. Even minor mistakes could have serious consequences. After much discussion in the town, 3 volunteers stepped forward. Jack, who had first spotted the aliens. Rose, who showed remarkable insight into interspecies differences. And Marcus, an older man who had once been a biology teacher. 2 days later, they boarded the shuttle to the Void Traveler with only small bags of personal items. None showed fear at leaving their planet for the first time, only excitement. You're surprisingly calm about space travel, observed Engineer Toll as the shuttle lifted off. Marcus shrugged. Humans have dreamed of this moment for generations. Being first is an honor, not a burden. The humans gasped as Earth receded beneath them, a blue marble against the blackness of space. The Void Traveler grew larger in the viewport, its massive structure gleaming in the sunlight. It's beautiful, whispered Rose. As they docked with the ship, the real challenges began. The humans needed to be carefully briefed on every aspect of alien physiology they might encounter. The Moravians breathe methane, explained Dr. Mira in the preparation chamber. The Tick are silicon-based and extremely brittle. The Voltar communicate through color changes and find verbal noise distressing. The Acridge must remain in low gravity or their internal organs will fail. The Fenks are aquatic and can only survive in their specialized tanks. Jack struggled to memorize all the details. So basically, we could accidentally kill someone by talking too loud, moving too quickly, or touching the wrong surface. Essentially, yes, confirmed Dr. Mira. Your natural behaviors on Earth could be catastrophic here. Marcus nodded soberly. Like visiting an intensive care unit in a hospital, we need to be gentle and cautious. The test began the following day. The humans entered a large circular chamber where representatives of the 5 alien species waited. Each occupied a specially designed environmental section to meet their biological needs. Admiral Krebs and the Council observers watched from an elevated platform as the humans approached the first delegation, the delicate, crystal-like Tizik. Jack stepped forward slowly, careful not to make sudden movements that might startle the fragile beings. He performed the greeting gesture Dr. Mira had taught him. A slow wave of his hand at precisely the right height. The lead Tick responded with a soft chiming sound that their translator rendered as, "We greet the Deathworlders with caution and respect." Rose winced at the term, but maintained her composure. "We come with peaceful intentions and a desire to learn." For hours, the humans moved between the different species, engaging in simple discussions about culture, biology, and history. The observers noted every interaction meticulously. What impressed the Council most wasn't the humans' strength or resilience, it was their extraordinary care and restraint. These beings, evolved to survive catastrophic conditions and overcome constant threats, displayed a gentleness that contradicted their evolutionary history. When Marcus accidentally moved too quickly near the Voltar, causing them distress, he immediately stepped back, lowered himself to the floor, and remained still until they recovered, sacrificing his own comfort without hesitation. As the test concluded, Admiral Krebs turned to the Council representative beside him. "What do you think?" "Remarkable," replied the ancient being. "They understand their own potential danger better than we anticipated. Perhaps the true adaptation of humans isn't their ability to survive a death world. It's their capacity to recognize the fragility in others and protect it." 1 month after the test at Station Gamma, the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with activity. Representatives from 200 worlds gathered to hear the final decision regarding humanity. Admiral Krebs stood before the assembly, flanked by Captain Vin and Dr. Mira. Behind them, Jack, Rose, and Marcus represented Earth, the first humans to ever set foot in the hallowed chamber. "Honored Council," began Admiral Krebs, his voice echoing through the vast room. "We stand at a historic moment. For the first time in our recorded history, we face a species that evolved on a Class 15 death world, a planet we previously classified as uninhabitable for intelligent life." Murmurs rippled through the gathered aliens. Many still wore protective gear despite the chamber being certified safe for all biologies. The humans, by contrast, appeared completely relaxed. "Our initial concern," continued Krebs, "was that humans would pose an unintentional danger to galactic society. Their natural resilience to conditions that would kill most of us suggested potentially catastrophic cultural incompatibilities." The head counselor, a being of pure energy contained in a specialized field, pulsed brightly. "What have you concluded from your observations and tests?" Dr. Mira stepped forward, activating a holographic display showing human biological data. Humans possess no special biological adaptations that explain their survival on Earth. Their cellular structure is vulnerable. Their bodies bruise, break, and bleed easily. They require constant maintenance in the form of food, water, and rest. "Then how do they survive on such a world?" asked a reptilian counselor. "Their true strength," explained Captain Vin, "lies not in their bodies but in their minds. They possess extraordinary problem-solving abilities, remarkable cooperation skills, and most importantly, adaptability." The display showed images of humans living in environments ranging from Arctic ice to scorching deserts, from mountain peaks to underwater habitats. "Humans don't merely endure their environment. They transform it," continued Vin. "When confronted with a problem, they invent solutions rather than waiting for evolution to provide them. This mental flexibility allowed them to thrive where no other species could." Marcus stepped forward, bowing respectfully to the council. "If I may speak." The head counselor pulsed in affirmation. "On Earth, we have a saying, 'Necessity is the mother of invention,'" Marcus said. "Our harsh world didn't make us stronger physically. It made us more creative, more determined, more cooperative. We survived because we refused to accept that we couldn't." Rose joined him. "We understand your concerns about our place in galactic society. Our normal is your nightmare. But the same adaptability that helped us survive Earth has taught us to adjust to new circumstances, as demonstrated during the controlled interactions at Station Gamma," added Admiral Krebs. "The humans showed exceptional care when dealing with more vulnerable species. They intuitively understood and respected biological differences." Jack stepped forward last. "We don't want special treatment. We just want to join you among the stars. We have much to learn, but perhaps we have something to offer too." The council withdrew for deliberation. Hours passed before they returned with their decision. "Humanity presents unique challenges to our existing classifications," announced the head counselor. "Therefore, we have created a new designation, Adaptive Apex Species. Earth remains classified as a Class 15 death world, but humanity is recognized as the first, and so far only, species capable of not merely surviving, but thriving in such conditions." The counselor's energy field brightened. "Furthermore, we believe humanity's unique perspective may benefit the galactic community. Their problem-solving approaches differ fundamentally from our own. Their adaptability may help us address challenges we've considered insurmountable." Admiral Krebs turned to the 3 humans, offering a formal bow. "Welcome to the galactic community." As the chamber erupted in a mixture of sounds representing various species forms of applause, Jack leaned toward Rose and Marcus. "So we're officially recognized as the toughest species in the galaxy," he whispered with a smile. Marcus shook his head. "No, we're recognized as the most adaptable. There's a difference." Rose nodded in agreement. "Our strength isn't that we can survive anything. It's that we can learn to live anywhere, with anyone." As they looked out at the diverse assembly of alien life, the truth was clear. Humans hadn't conquered their Deathworld. They had been shaped by it into something the galaxy had never seen before. A species whose greatest weapon wasn't strength or technology, but the ability to embrace change itself. The Class 15 Deathworld hadn't just been their home. It had been their teacher.